Back to Mike Brown. I can't think of the last time, well, there have been some exceptions, but I can't think of the last time on this program that we've covered a story that has received the kind of social media feedback I got yesterday when talking about the Mike Brown case possibly being settled out of court. And people were angered by it. They were angered by it because, damn it, we deserve to be angered by it in the city of St. Louis. What the outside forces who rushed in to manipulate this case did to the St. Louis area was leave a stain on the reputation of this part of the country that's not going to fade for many, many years. And those of us who realize that it was all built on a lie, that it was manipulated in the mainstream media, and I know you were like me, when that whole thing was going on, I had friends calling me from across the country to find out if I was safe. Because their assumption was all of St. Louis was burning to the ground. The giant racist cesspool that we are, we were burning everything. Everything was burning down. And that to me is the reason people are so angered and have a right to be angry that the mother and father of Mike Brown, who died as a result of his own hand by sticking it in the window and trying to take the officer's gun, died as a result of his own actions, will end up with more money in the bank than 95% of the people in the sound of my voice. And maybe more than that, because we're told the mother's gotten a book deal now. She sold book rights to a book that I'm sure was a flop, but some Hollywood liberal has paid for the rights to it to make a movie out of it. How one-sided is that going to be? To see people being able to profit off this is sickening. And here's why. Here's what we know. We know that the Obama administration Justice Department and Eric Holder bent over backwards to run the city of Ferguson through a meat grinder. To number one, try to prove Darren Wilson did something wrong, which they couldn't. And number two, to try to, in light of the fact that they couldn't find anything wrong on the shooting, they wanted to allege a larger case of built-in bias on the part of this fine St. Louis County municipality. And they managed to succeed on point number two, because they forced the city into some sort of an agreement where they had to go into court and sign off on it and change the way they did this and change the way they did that, because some activist liberals who the Obama administration filled the Justice Department with seemed to be the brainchildren of that idea. This would fix things going forward. This is the same group that wants to fix the justice system to be more fair. In other words, not to enforce the law. So to me, the anger that I saw in these Facebook and Twitter posts and emails that I got yesterday, that's where that anger comes from. People are like, no, don't you settle with them. Take it to court. Nobody knows what's going to happen in a courtroom. Maybe you get in there and you've got a jury that's going to be hung, or you've got a jury that's going to vote all one way or all the other way. You know that they would have spent hours picking that jury. They would have tried to handpick people who would have been sensitive to Mike Brown or sensitive to law enforcement or whatever the case may be. So you don't know what would have happened in court. But bear in mind, here's what they were alleging, that his civil rights were violated by this shooting because of a pattern of wrongdoing by the city. Guess where that wording would have come from? You guessed it. the findings of the FBI and Justice Department investigation into the city of Ferguson. You and I both know that had nothing to do with Mike Brown, who just stolen a box of Swisher Sweets by strong-arming a guy who walked down the street and tried to take a gun away from a cop getting killed. One had nothing to do with the other. The policies of the city had nothing to do with that. Darren Wilson was a cop doing a cop's job. And now his life is ruined and the reputation of this city is ruined. But are you angry that that family is going to walk away with probably, I'm guessing here, $1.5 million? I know the attorneys will get part of it. There'll be court costs in there. But what if they only get $500,000 each? It's wrong because the city was not responsible for the bad parenting that put their son in that situation. But they're going to get that payoff. Now, let me tell you what I found out. You're probably thinking to yourself, well, in the end, what difference does it make? It's just some insurance company that's paying for it, right? Here's the breaking news, folks, and you're going to hear it on this radio station today for the first time. The city of Ferguson isn't going to have to pay hardly any of this money to the Brown family. Do you understand that? It is going to come from their insurance provider. And now you're going to be a little surprised to find out that if you live in any of the following cities, your tax dollars are going to be used to pay Mike Brown's mom and dad. If you live in Baldwin, Brentwood, Bridgeton, Chesterfield, Clayton, Crestwood, Creve Coeur, De Pere, Ellisville, Eureka, Fenton, Frontenac, Glendale, Hazelwood, Lake St. Louis, Manchester, Maplewood, Maryland Heights, Olivet, Richmond Heights, Rock Hill, St. Anne, St. John, Town and Country, University City, Webster Groves, you name those are the cities who are members of a self-insurance pool of which Ferguson was a member. Ferguson got kicked out back in 2015 from this organization called the St. Louis Area Insurance Trust. Now, they got kicked out just like your insurance company might drop you if you end up with a big claim, right? So when the riots happened and things were getting burned down and they saw that train coming down the tracks, they dropped the city of Ferguson from this group almost 2 years ago. So when it came time to decide whether this case would be settled out of court or not, don't point your finger of blame to the city of Ferguson or the prosecutor or the defense attorney for the city of Ferguson, whoever that was. Do you know who voted to give this money to the family? It's the board that controls the St. Louis Area Insurance Trust, made up of the city administrators of many of those towns that I just read. So the pot of money is paid in, it's a self-insurance fund. If you're a taxpayer in any of those cities I just read, you paid into this pool of money. And 12 people on a board, all city administrators who sit on this board, voted to settle with the Brown family to the tune of somewhere south of $3 million, which is the liability limit. Makes sense to me if it was probably about half of that. So if you were angry already that these parents of Mike Brown, who apparently didn't have a whole lot to do with him during his existence, are going to go to the bank with huge checks to deposit, you might be even more angry to learn that it's your money that they're taking to the bank. Because Ferguson had nothing to do with this decision, from what I can tell. And we'll never know the details of what would have been argued in a courtroom, But a lot of people I've spoken with in the last 24 hours are convinced that had this gone to court, the Brown family would have lost and lost soundly. And instead, this group of folks decided to cut their losses and settle to the tune of over $1 million. We know that because we know it wasn't $3 million, so it was over $1 million of taxpayer money that's going to go to the Brown family. To me, that is just maddening. And finding out a lot about this group isn't easy either, the St. Louis Area Insurance Trust. You should find out if your city administrator is one of the ones who voted for this payoff, because that's what it was. 314-969